Hi, y'all. We're excited to have you here and want to welcome you to Flatiron Schools, the UX of AI. My name is Corey Mickelson, and I'm the event coordinator here with Flatiron School. A big part of my job is hosting free introductory events like this evening's event to give you a better opportunity to meet some of our instructors and get a better feel of the Flatiron School experience. A quick reminder, we will be using the chat as our main source of communication, so make sure to change that little blue button from host and panelist to everyone so we can all chat together. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest for today. We have Alyssa from our admissions team. Go ahead and say hi.
Hey, y'all.
And then we have Joshua is representing our product design team. Go ahead and take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Corey. It's my pleasure to be here today and to talk about a really interesting topic. I'll say upfront that I've struggled a little bit with putting this talk together for a few reasons. Number one is no one's really an expert on what the UX of AI should be or will be. It is definitely an in-discovery process. It is something that depends in large part on access to data models and to proprietary large sets of data that companies and products and businesses are able to use to make their services and their products better. So there's a lot of contextual considerations when you're designing AI services or integrating AI into your products. So it's hard to make sweeping generalizations or takeaways and principles yet about what this should look like. But as a designer, right, like I lean heavily on my experience and my background in human-centered design and human-computer interactions, and including ethical and inclusive design, and then extending those principles out to new technologies and progress in AI, and bringing those two things together. So I wouldn't call myself a practitioner of AI products, but I have been teaching it, I've been studying it a bit, and I've also been using it quite a bit in my own work for Flatiron School, as well as to help manage and run our team of curriculum writers and instructors. And of course, we are experimenting and we are learning alongside students at Flatiron School all of the time to see how AI can help us be better learners, how it can help us be better designers. So I suppose this is my way of sort of giving you a caveat at the beginning of this time that I'm nowhere near an expert, but I'm a curious person, and I'm someone who has been using and researching and collaborating with others on designing for AI and using AI. So I would love it if in the chat we can have a conversation. I would love for you to kind of ask questions as we go, and I'll try to keep an eye on that as I go through a couple of ideas that I've been working on and put together for my own teams. And I apologize, we'll kind of jump around a bit, okay? So like I said, this is going to be a bit more informal, a bit more conversational than some of our other events. And the other reason I'd say I kind of struggled with putting together something for this subject is, this is a marketing event. I'm trying to make sure that I'm talking about things in a way that people who are not necessarily designers or not software engineers, that it sparks your curiosity and makes you want to learn more. But I want to give you also some just practical things to think about. So no matter what your role or your job is, whether you're interested in becoming a designer or you're just here to, find out what UX is and what AI has to do with UX right now, that there might be some just interesting things because you yourself can use AI today, right now. There are lots of tools and products that you might find useful in your current context. So we'll talk about some of those. Let me share my screen. Okay. So let me pop open the chat window so I can keep an eye. There we go. Awesome. Hello world, back to you, Robert. Thanks for coming again. Okay, so when I talk about AI, at least for our purposes today, I'm talking about a field or a subfield of AI called generative AI. So generative AI is a branch of artificial intelligence that you may have heard about, things like ChatGPT. You may have heard of Google Bard. These are all created using large language models, which is primarily made for drafting content or answering questions or helping make decisions, right? So generative artificial intelligence is able to have some context awareness and is able to fill in the gap, so to speak, and infer the meaning behind your questions. So that's what generative AI can do. It doesn't just make content, right? I think that's the like low-hanging fruit. We think we can just type in something in ChatGPT and it's going to spit out some paragraphs on any content that we want. While that may or may not be helpful, it can do a lot more than that. It can make predictions. It can generate creative assets and deliverables that have never existed before, right? It's not just going out and finding information and then copying, pasting that information into the interface. It's actually creating new meaning based on the information that it knows. And it can do this, right, in milliseconds. Because it doesn't necessarily have to have access to the internet, these AI models. It doesn't have to, because it's already been trained on petabytes of data. So it has all of that information in real time at its disposal. So it can grab all of that and answer your questions. So I'm going to talk about something called a foundation model and why this is a paradigm shift. I think it's a paradigm shift. I don't think that's being too hyperbolic. And I'm going to show you what a foundation model does and why this could be of interest to you. So that's our terms to define for the next few minutes. Generative AI, right? It's a subfield of the larger AI study. Foundation models, large language models, and then tuning. We're going to talk about tuning. So this is customizing the AI to make sure that it aligns with your needs and objectives. So if you look on the left, what we used to have are individual AI models. So discrete models. So on the left, 4 sets of data models, and each one is fine-tuned to one particular task. Okay. One model, one task, 1-to-1 ratio. Since 2010, work has been done in generative AI and specifically on these new AI models called foundation models. Foundation models are able to subsume vastly more amounts of data than the old models. And so what foundation models can do is they can accomplish many different tasks, one model for many different tasks, as opposed to a 1-to-1 relationship for AI models, okay? So on the left is what we used to have, on the right is what we have now. So one model for many tasks. And that's essentially what a large language model is too, as a foundation model, something like ChatGPT or Google Bard. So what is tuning? Tuning is essentially taking your data. This could mean if you're in a business, it could be your business's data on its customers, everything that you know about your customers' purchase history or about their browsing history, about their demographics, right? Structured data is essentially tables and rows, right? Could be a SQL database, could even be large Excel spreadsheets, right? But it's probably a database to store a lot more data than you can put in Excel. But the point is, it's tables and rows. All right. It's taking that structured data and adding it to the foundation model so that when you're using these AI models, it is able to give you better answers that are sort of custom tailored or unique to whatever your goals or objectives are. Okay, so from these, we have AI engineering emerging. Okay, so you may have heard of prompt engineering. Google has released 6 or 7 pretty good introductory courses on prompt engineering and generative AI. So they're each about like 45 minutes to an hour and a half. So I'd encourage you, if you're just interested in understanding sort of some of the theory behind this and why this is important going forward, I would recommend those courses as sort of introductory beginner courses. Okay, so what are we seeing here with AI when it comes to products, services, companies, and businesses? Well, for a while now, companies have been doing something called process automation, business process automation, or you may hear it called robotic process automation. That's RPA. Despite the name, it's a bit of a misnomer. There are no robots involved. It's simply software scripts that are called bots, right? So it's using software to automate routine tasks or repetitive tasks that a human would have to do, manual tasks, and using that to interact with the digital system. So that's what robotic process automation is. Because of that, we've seen this kind of explosion or emergence of something called low-code tools, or a product may brand itself as a no-code tool. You see things like this in Webflow, right, where you're able to launch a website or a customer database or all kind of things using very, very little code, if any code at all. Framer is another version of that, where you can launch a website without using any HTML or CSS. You can just design it in front of you, and what you see is what you get. It handles, or it abstracts all of that code for you behind the scenes. All right, so low-code tools go far deeper and broader than just putting out HTML and CSS. Okay, an example of a low-code or even a no-code tool would be Zapier. So have any of you ever messed about with like Zapier, or what's the one that Apple iOS has? I can't remember what it's called, but it's essentially automating tasks, right? Like I have these Philips lights in my office here, and I can program using a UI interface layer. I don't have to use any code, but I can program how those lights behave. HomeKit for Apple iOS. I'm not sure what Android's version of that is. But these low-code or no-code tools are now able to do so much more. And so they can actually pair with these AI models. Okay, so you've got now these low-code tools like Zapier. Pipeline is another one that's very popular right now, where you can do a little bit of coding or no coding at all, but you can automate all of these tasks and have ChatGPT or these large language models do the work for you, right? Spit out interesting information or insights from the data, and then you automate the rest of it. And I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. This last little definition down here, task mining. It's funny, you know, the corporate world sort of always has to have some sort of like funny label for something, but task mining is essentially just looking for things that we could automate. That's really all that means. You can use AI to sort of analyze and observe the tasks that users are performing, and then have it give you recommendations for how you could automate those different things. But you don't have to use AI for that. Businesses call task mining just looking around for anything that could be automated. So here's an example of a case study that I'm developing for a partner here. So the Bank of America is using natural language processing tools or foundation models to ingest information about its customers, that it knows about its customers' financial situations and history, transactions, conversations that it has. And it's been able to automate a lot of manual labor that used to have to be performed by humans. So just in the past 6 months, they've had 50 million client requests that are now handled by AI, and it can handle many more complex tasks, okay? Think back to even 2 or 3 years ago. If you're anything like me, you avoided chatbots. Like every time I saw a little chat bot pop up in the right-hand corner of a marketing website or a progressive web app or whatever, I just was like, no, 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 because I know you're going to be terrible. That's going to slowly start to change, right? As more of these, if these chatbots are able to handle more complex tasks and more mimic the creativity and productivity of a human. Okay, so Bank of America, as well as JP Morgan Chase, are sort of front runners in that. They've invested millions and millions of dollars in developing these foundation models and converting that with their customer data. They've also doubled their knowledge base of financial questions, because before, what would have to happen? A human would have to write frequently asked questions for a database, right? We know our customers want to know more about this. We want to have that available in our chatbot. A human would have to go and do that. Now, using task mining, right? The foundation model can observe all of the questions over the course of a month, say, right? And the top questions, it can surface to the top, to the, let's say, the human observer at the top who has to review all of this. And it would say, based on the data that I've consumed from your customers, I recommend that these 20 questions be added to your knowledge base, right? And it's all automated. And then they launched a chatbot called Erica that has seen 500,000, 500,000 new users per month engaging with this chatbot. So by all measures, it's been a really good success. All right, so I just want to see, look at the chat here.
There is
the entry-level classes that I mentioned. I'll post them towards the end of the talk, but if you just Google generative AI courses, it should pop up. It's probably on Coursera, actually. I think that might be the platform they use. And then Ash asked about is it like scripting in Python or like writing automation testing scripts in QA? So you've done bash scripting only once. Yeah, Python is definitely going to be the language that is used most in these. Like I know Pipeline uses it. You can use it with Zapier. Definitely Python scripting. And the nice thing about Python is you could probably study for about 10 hours of sort of entry-level Python. And then you could do a lot with just 10 hours of learning a little bit about Python. It's really not complicated. If you have ever done f of x, if you've ever done a little bit of light scripting and Excel spreadsheets, you can tackle things like Pipeline and Python scripting. Shortcuts, thank you. Manija, I hope I said that right, but yes, I think it's called Shortcuts in the iOS app. Love it. Okay, so looking at process automation. This is just one example of how many different services and actors can be involved in a simple customer issue, right? So here on the left, we have the customer going through Salesforce, getting a quote. The quote goes through Adobe and is stored in Box. It flows to the right. There's a purchase order created in DocuSign, which is then sent out using an Outlook server. The customer orders, they have to download the app. There's a credit risk check. There's the shipment, the invoicing, the payment, and finally receiving the product or service. So while we have done a lot of work in integrating the different APIs of these different services from Salesforce, Adobe, Box, DocuSign, Outlook, Workday, Excel, right? You can abstract through the API. You can create another layer and ingest the API into this other layer. And I think what process automation does is says you don't even have to work with this other layer, right? We can automate all of these things, or there is potential to automate a lot of this so it just works, right? Now there's human checkpoints at different areas. You have to make sure that a human has oversight over this layer. But it's really a paradigm shift in the complexity of what AI can handle on behalf of humans. Here's a really simple way that I have found to basically do this. So this is a simplified version of this. This is my version of that, right? As a designer, I'm always doing flows, okay? So a process flow or a flow diagram. If you're a developer, you're very familiar with these process flows. I use it to show behavior over time or to contrast the way things are now with the way I want them to be using AI or using process automation. So here's the old way that I used to have to do things at the bottom. I would attend a Zoom meeting. I would wait for that video to process, and then I would upload the video to Vimeo, and then I would download the transcript that Vimeo made, but I'd have to clean it up. I'd have to remove the timestamps. I'd have to delete all of the soft returns that was in the text file, right? I'd have to make it readable and useful to me because I needed a clean transcript. I'm also realizing that these should be switched. There we go. After that, after I had the clean transcript, I might go through and highlight important points manually, okay? The VP of Salesforce said this thing is really important to them. We need to make sure that we're taking action on this, okay? Or we need to follow up with Adobe on this particular action item, right? I would kind of pull out those things via highlight or bolding. And then I would push all of that interesting information to the top of the transcript. And I'd say, here's the top 5 takeaways from this 90-minute long meeting we had with vendors. And then maybe I would email that top 5 insights, or maybe the whole transcript to the meeting attendees. That could take anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. Now, using process automation and ChatGPT, it takes 2 minutes. I'll attend the Zoom meeting, and then I use low code or no code tools to send that transcript automatically to ChatGPT. What I tell ChatGPT to do is to remove the timestamps from the transcript, to create categories of action items. I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like in a minute. To remove all of the, to improve the formatting of the transcript, so there's no weird spacing or anything like that. To improve the grammar, right? Make it readable for humans. Then I have it shoot that transcript over to Notion, which is what I like to work in for my knowledge base. And the whole transcript, along with the summary insights, are put into Notion. And that all takes anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. But I don't have to even do anything. I get a notification via email when it's in Notion, okay? Let me show you what that looks like really quick. Hold on. Yeah, jump down here. Okay. I can even have it post in Slack to my team. I can tell Pipeline to, I want you to post the summary of the transcript into the team Slack channel, right? And it'll just do that in like 5 minutes after the meeting. So here's an example from literally a day or two ago, a meeting that we had. And you can see it not only cleans up the transcript and then is able to synthesize the top takeaways from that meeting but it categorizes. Now, this is what's interesting to me, and this is what I want to point out that is so sort of paradigm shifting, because it's subtle, but it's important. It's not just that it finds bullet points, okay? Discussed using Google Slides and Docs for collaboration. I explained how to make edits in the browser, save to the cloud, right? Those are the individual bullet points. The foundation model, or ChatGPT, knows how to group the bullet points and then create a label that explains what the bullet points underneath mean, or it classifies the bullet points automatically. Now, if it's a super important meeting, I'm going to go back and look at the transcript and make sure that I agree, right? It's not 100% perfect, but as many meetings as I have per day, like, it does a pretty damn good job. Like, I am continuously blown away with how it's able to infer the important details from our meeting and then classify those details under different headers. 5 big takeaways, right? 5 classifications. And I'm going to talk more in a minute about, as designers, why this is really important and helpful. Okay, but I want to jump back up here. So what I'd recommend to you, whether you're a designer or not, there's got to be things in your work or in your life right now that you could automate. So start playing around with process flows and list out the steps and try to determine how long it takes to go through those steps. What are the decision points? If you really want to get sort of nerdy about it, you could do a swim lane diagram that shows the different actors in the system. Okay. So these swim lane flow diagrams track the flow of information, because sometimes it's not just left to right, right? Sometimes, or top to bottom, it's not linear. Sometimes it loops back on itself. This is where the complexity comes in when you're working on teams in a business or a company. Tracking the flow of information and the flow of behavior, either on behalf of the customer or some internal process. If you're like IT, if you're on IT, it's inevitable that you're going to miss something unless you externalize and validate the flow of information and the flow of behaviors across different actors over time. Okay. So this is one way that designers and software engineers will often try to get a handle on complex flows of information. But again, you don't have to be working in software engineering or designer to do this. Just do this with like your smart oven or your smart refrigerator or something. You never know the things that you could kind of come up with to automate. The ability to automate things in your life is coming quickly. So this is one way that I would recommend doing it. All right. So I pulled this from a McKinsey report here in research that I'm doing right now about generative AI. And I just think it's really interesting that 75% of the value from generative AI is predicted to come from 4 different sort of sectors. Okay, so financial, banking, retail, customer, pharma. But on top of that, across all sectors, you have sales, marketing, software engineering, customer operations, and product and research and development. It doesn't matter what sector you're in, whether it's health, whether it's finance, pharma. It's probable that you're dealing with some sort of customer interaction or customer operation, or you're working in product, or you're doing research or sales. Automation is coming for, I don't want to say your job, because that's not true. Even if you dig into the McKinsey report, McKinsey doesn't say that either. It's saying that there are parts of your job that automation is going to be coming for. And I don't mean that in a like way that it's going to take something from you. My recommendation is to get ahead of it and start thinking now about what could be automated for you or for your team, right? Before someone way above you sort of hoists or forces these things on you or changes things for you before you're ready. So again, I'm not trying to be like doomsday about it, but just in my own work and in teaching design and in the school that we run, I've seen these things happen quickly. Right? I have seen how it's changed my everyday work. I see how it's changing the work of my coworkers, right? Because we are, in a sense, in a lot of these sectors of sales, marketing, software engineering, and product and research and development, and of course, customer operations. So we're going to see it. Now, let me look again and see if anyone has any questions. Okay, no questions. Just some nice chatter. Okay, so after that sort of spiel about looking at generative AI and process automation, I wanted to sort of take a little break and just show you a little bit of how I have started to use Midjourney. So Midjourney is a generative AI foundation model that you can give it text prompts and it will generate images. So I'm sure you've seen it if you've not already played around with it a little bit in Discord. But here's the prompt that I gave Midjourney. And by the way, if you want to really get good at prompt engineering without actually studying a lot, my 10-year-old would call it big brain idea. Like big brain idea, use AI to improve how you use AI. Use AI to improve how you use AI. Yes, I do mean that. What I mean is let ChatGPT tell you how to interact with itself better. Okay, when I'm doing any type of like prompting for a business purpose or something, I will say, help me improve this prompt so that when I give it to Midjourney or when I paste it into ChatGPT, you understand it better. Help me help you is sort of what I'm doing there, right? So this wasn't my original prompt, but I wanted ChatGPT to put it into a format that would make the most sense to Midjourney and give me the best results based on my needs, okay? So it basically told me how I could give a better prompt, okay? So I wanted a set of icons that were based on 50s and 60s aesthetics, and this is what it put out the first time. And these are nice, but some of them are not really icons, right? So I asked it to help me. I said, here's an example. I actually showed it an example what I needed of icons. And this is what it put out the second time. Much better. Okay, so within 2 prompts, using AI to improve how I interacted with AI, I was able to get to something that was more useful as a set of icons. And no one else has these icons, by the way. Like, that's what's so cool about it, is you can really create something that's unique for your particular business case or your particular use. And then what I did is I used Adobe Illustrator to create SVGs of these different icons. So if you're familiar, with using Adobe Illustrator or anything, this is just an image. It's a flat bitmap image, meaning I can't change anything about this chair. I can't change the colors. I can't interact with the image in any way. But with Adobe Illustrator, it can trace the outlines of the images and it can put out an SVG. So now I could interact with the different pieces of it. I could change the colors. Let's say I needed to brand it. I needed it to be lighter. So I got all these different parts that I can interact with that I might want to change the shape, the size, whatever I need. So these are now SVGs. which are much more useful for UI design. And then within, gosh, this all took less than 10 minutes. And I had this icon set that I could start to use in an interface that was completely unique. Whereas I would have to go and hunt for these icons or create them from scratch, which could have taken like days. So again, just saves me a lot of time. What is the larger scale end result of this type of workflow? Interestingly, I think we're already seeing that. I started thinking about what the future version of like, show me some mid-century looking icons could be for designers or people that wanted to launch a product or a digital product. And I was like, oh, we kind of already have that. We just haven't figured out exactly what it means or how to use it best. So No Man's Sky was released in 2018, maybe? I don't remember when it was released. But No Man's Sky it's a video game, okay? And it creates a procedurally generated universe. Now, various articles and sources say that there are 18 quintillion planets that are created in No Man's Sky across all planets. That number is so big, it doesn't even make sense to me. So I don't know if that's accurate in any true sense, but it's a hell of a lot of planets and space that's created as you go through it. This was initially unsuccessful. It wasn't a great game, but then over the course of the past 6 years, it's actually become extremely successful because the developers of No Man's Sky have continued to iterate and listen to customer feedback. And rather than just abandoning it, they've continued to improve the product for free. So if you purchased No Man's Sky when it was first released, you still got all of this amazing new updates and content. And I was looking across a few articles, and they were talking about what the future of design's role would be with AI. And this quote stood out to me, and it sort of related to this idea of procedurally generated universes. The designer's role will be to set the goals, parameters, and constraints, and then review and fine-tune the AI-generated design. Not just designers, okay? I think if you're working in any type of digital product or service, this is going to be part of your role, right? Setting goals, parameters, constraints, having oversight and fine-tuning what the AI bot or model does for you or for your customers, okay? So there's a lot of sort of doomsday scenarios. There's a lot of chatter going around about it taking jobs. There's debate back and forth about, will it create more jobs than it takes? Like, what's the end result? Is it an altruistic movement? All these different things. I mean, just based on what I've seen so far, it has enhanced roles and jobs. And that seems to be the track that we're on now. But I think we've got to be agile and flexible. And I think we have to have an open mind of discovery. All right. Last couple of things I wanted to talk about here. Yes, this recording is definitely going to be available. And this kind of gets back to some of the things I was talking about at the beginning about these foundation models. So when we're working in design, we have this framework called the Data Information Knowledge Framework. So each of these sort of columns are discrete constructs. Okay, data is the individual pieces of data that we collect. So that could be structured data, like columns and rows of customer information or behavioral information. It could be an individual word in a transcript, right, from a user interview. That's just data on its own. It doesn't mean anything. right? If you separate out the individual data pieces from its surrounding context, it's meaningless. We take all of those discrete pieces of data and we make some sort of meaning out of it. There's some sort of takeaway or insight. It's a translation in a sense. Like, what does the data mean? I had 10 customer interviews, right? Some of them told me similar things. Some of them told me different things. How do I make sense out of everything the customers told me? That's information, because information is usually actionable in some way, right? It respects the context surrounding it. And then we have experience frameworking, meaning I can take that information, I can take the insights, and I can create larger ideas based out of it, or larger parts of a world, or I can start to define the customer experience, right? That's when I showed you the process flows, okay? I now have information about how many hours I've spent doing this thing. I have information about each individual step that I'm taking to create these transcripts and send the insights to the attendees. Okay, experience frameworking allows me to create a process flow that's like a future. Here's what it could be using AI automation. Okay, that's knowledge, because I'm taking the information that I know and I'm applying it in a way that is useful or valuable or productive in some way. Okay, so that's a lot of what we do. We create these like future use cases or future scenarios out of information. And we say, this is what we have now, but this is what could be. And that's what gets us excited. And that's what we work towards, no matter what our job is, right? Like, if we just thought things were going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse, we would not be motivated to keep working in that direction, right? So we set a direction, we set a way of travel with experience, frameworking, and knowledge, right? And then eventually we hope to get to wisdom. Eventually we would transcend to wisdom by gaining empathy and deeper understanding. Wisdom, I tend to think about using knowledge at scale, right? So how would I use my knowledge of what's going on across an entire organization or for all customers? How can I scale that knowledge? So given what I showed you that ChatGPT did for me and what I automated using Pipeline and Notion, where does that sit on here? What is AI now able to help with? What do you think? Put it in the chat. What do you think AI is just turning data to information? Is AI turning information into knowledge? Is AI helping us move from data all the way to wisdom? There's not an answer. I can give you my opinion. I think that AI, given the recent progress, is now able to move from data to knowledge, because knowledge is being able to apply information into some sort of useful, productive way, or a way that's valuable to me or my customers or those surrounding me or my community, right? Just because that's what I'm in, education tech, like I tend to think in sort of the corporate world. But I'm also excited seeing little seeds being developed about what AI can do on the local level for communities. And we need that translation, by the way, from like the big companies that sort of understand these processes. Like, I would love to see that trickle down to the community and the local level. So that's another reason why I'm very passionate about helping people understand or be curious about. Really, this event is more about sparking your curiosity, hopefully, than about teaching you how to do it. But anyway, sorry, I kind of sidestepped into a caveat there. Yeah, what do you think? Data to knowledge, that's kind of what I think. Agents can help move from data to wisdom. Yeah, maybe so. it can certainly give ideas and scenarios at scale, or help us scale knowledge across, millions of people and companies. Kiana, I agree, data to knowledge, but the knowledge may not be well utilized without the wisdom humans can improve. Yeah, I think that's a great way to frame it. Gaining empathy and wisdom is the part only humans can do. Right now, yeah. So a few things, what am I excited about when it comes to, that framework? Personally, what am I personally excited about? Google is beta testing a product. If you can sign up for the wait list if you want. It didn't have a wait list, but now it does, called Notebook LM, for Notebook Language Model. And what it does is it allows you to add all of your own information to the large language model. So it grounds the language model in your notes, or you can tell it what books to consider, or what sources, what articles, scientific articles, white paper, whatever. You control your data, and you let the language model get grounded in that, and it will give you, it will allow you to then interact with it in a way that you could do with ChatGPT. Okay, so it's like ChatGPT, except it's using your information. It knows about the information that you give it, and so it can be much more useful for certain scenarios. Interestingly, what's called source grounding, which is another way of just saying like tuning, I think, does seem to reduce the risk of model hallucinations. If you're not familiar with what hallucinations are simply bullshit that the AI model makes up, that it thinks is correct. You might see this in completely, not non-factual information that it gives, or fake. Sometimes ChatGPT will make up like fake sources or fake books and things like that. So that's what the hallucination is. I'm also excited about a new product called Rosebud Journal, which kind of does the same thing. I really like habit tracking and the behavioral modification for good, as long as I'm in control of what's being modified for myself. But this is a cool like journaling app. It's also in beta, I believe, but you can go and try it out. Rosebud Journal. And it essentially, by putting in these journal prompts every single day, it will start to give you these insights. Again, this isn't new. It's not that transcript analysis and sentiment analysis and all these things are new. It's the level of creative interpretation and inference that is new, because these models understand so much more. Okay, they think much more like a human would, except a human that has access to petabytes of information in real time, right? So, so I'll leave you with this, and then I'll see if there's any questions at the end. But I always love this old quote from Mr. Tolkien. From one of his books. I don't remember if it was The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, but he says, "This tale grew in the telling." And I think that's a good reminder that we're still very much in the early stages, and we're in the discovery phase, and you can be part of that. I want to see more people who aren't the CEOs of big major tech companies, or aren't white, cisgender, European and American. Like I just, there need to be more voices in this, and they need to be more people telling this tale, so that what emerges can truly be inclusive and representative of the needs of people. So again, just get curious, I think, is the first step if you're interested in exploring more about this. Don't be put off by fancy terms like large language models and tuning and things like that. you'll have to learn the semantics and the key terms in any new sector or domain that you're trying to study. But what is happening is that more and more people are able to interact with and benefit from these AI models. But you have to be the sort of creative first mover, right? The AI models, at least right now, aren't going to tell you, you have to do this, 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 and this. Like you need to experiment and be curious and be the creative first mover to figure out how to use these things for yourself. And then I just leave you with these. I pulled these from a webinar I did a year ago or so, and I think they're pertinent here too. The problem with goals is that we don't see what we don't expect, right? We're sort of blinded by confirmation bias, right? Or when we have a goal in front of us, it's like you're moving towards that goal. And so anything that doesn't necessarily get you exactly to that goal, you're ignoring. I think with AI and using AI, it's hard to have like a hard, non-dynamic goal. Instead, think about defining a direction of travel. Okay. You could think about like using a North Star rather than a goal, right? Because there are many different ways that you could sort of maneuver towards a North Star direction of travel. Because it helps you, I think, manage the complexity in front of you, the load of overbearing information that might be coming at you all the time from all sides. So it helps you manage the present, helps you deal with uncertainty. I mean, I have a lot of imposter syndrome too around AI because I'm not an engineer, software engineer by practice, although I've done a lot of like study and I can do some coding and things like that. I know enough Python and React and HTML, CSS and stuff. So, but that's just been accumulated over the years out of necessity, right? Like working with software engineers and designing with them. And my own natural curiosity has led me to want to know, how to use some of these things. So I spend a little time here and there dabbling. I tinker. Like at the end of the day, it's curious tinkering. But that can get you really far. I think that's the big takeaway. It's like curious tinkering can get you farther because there's so much more you can tinker with. And the access to being able to tinker in the garage is the barrier to access has been lowered by a lot. So that's exciting. That's a really, really good thing. Yeah, I think that's it. I hope this wasn't too much rambling, but I hope that there was something useful or interesting or curious here that you can use. We've only got a couple of questions or a couple of seconds here. So can Figma change to SVG? Figma can export SVG. Yeah, Natalie, thank you. It can export PNG, which you would use a PNG if you wanted to export an asset that had a transparent background. That's when you would use a PNG, so you could change the color of the background or something like that. Whereas JPEG doesn't have transparent pixels, or opacity, I think is the right one. Stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thank you so much for today. That was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn. Email joshua.robinson@Flatiron School. Love to connect, love to just chat about this stuff. Like I said, I'm a tinkerer. So if you have your own stuff you like to tinker with and you want to talk about it, I'd be happy to.
Well, thank you.
And if you want more information, oh, sorry.
Oh, no,
Corey,
yeah,
go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, if you want more information about Flatiron School, about our product design program, software engineering, cybersecurity, data science, I have seen people from all backgrounds come to these different these different disciplines. So it doesn't matter if you have an artistic background or not, you could make an excellent product designer. Doesn't matter if you have a technical background, software engineering or cybersecurity could be for you. It's such a fun, exciting, and important time, I think, to jump into these different disciplines. So if you want any more information about that, you can always get in contact with Alyssa or Corey, or check out our website.
I was gonna say, Joshua, you stole the words right out of my mouth, which is great. I did put the link that isn't just for product design. The link in there to apply for any of our programs is for any of the programs. You'll select which one you're interested in. But yes, as Joshua said, it's not too late to get into a career in tech. And if what Joshua just explained to all of us doesn't excite you, I don't know what else does. So feel free to reach out to our team and connect with us. We'd happy to answer any additional questions you guys may have.
Ashley, the information for the product design course is on our website. I'll drop that in the chat as well.
Nile asks if there is an AI program. We have AI in all of our programs. There's not an AI specific track, but it is a big part of software engineering. It's part of product design. We use AI tools in our product design course. I can't speak as much to cybersecurity. I know data science definitely gets into machine learning and training models, tuning models. Yeah. So it's definitely a core part of most of the programs.
Oh, and
Yes.
then the recording I will send out to everybody that registered for the event. So don't worry about that. Once I get it uploaded, within the next 3 days, there'll be an email that goes out to the email you registered with. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon or evening, and we hope to see you at another event soon. Bye.
Good day.